I am still not sold on Marco Sturm being the head coach of the Boston Bruins. People have tried, friends of mine, the media covering this, they've tried to convince me that Marco Sturm is the guy. And I'm not seeing it. I was disappointed with the hiring in the first place because A, it took so long, and B, it feels like an entry-level job again. Like, why can't the Bruins get a guy who's coached at the NHL level of any kind before? You know what I mean? I don't care if he coached for a bad NHL team, coached at the NHL level. Instead, you get Marco Sturm, a minor league coach, after you say you're going to come in and bring someone in who's got room to evolve offensively. Marco Sturm's got plenty of room to evolve offensively. His team was not all that sharp offensively coaching in the AHL in Ontario. If you're happy about this move or you're still confused like me, get involved in the comments, like and subscribe. Find us here every weekday because I'm trying to find some reasons here. I really am. I want just one Don Sweeney thing to go well. But then he tells me I'm looking for someone who's going to evolve offensively, and he brings in Marco Sturm. The one thing two things that Bruins fans have been trying to sell us on for why Marco Sturm is going to be a good fit for this Bruins team. The first thing is he's a great communicator. Damn, man. If I had a nickel for every time I heard someone involved with the Bruins was a great communicator, I wouldn't need to do this show. I'd be off on a beach somewhere. I'd be a friggin' millionaire every time I heard this coach is a great communicator. That sounds a lot like Jim Montgomery. And I'm sure Monty is a great communicator. That's fantastic. But when you don't get to hire your own staff and you don't get to even have a sniff at deciding who gets to play in Providence and who gets to play in Boston, who's up on the 9th floor on any given night, then does it really matter if you're a great communicator? Like, what's the point of having a great communicator if you're not the ones making the calls? There was all kinds of other problems with Jim Montgomery, but damned if he wasn't a great communicator. And you know who wasn't apparently a great communicator? Bruce Cassidy. All he did was take them to the Stanley Cup final. All he did was win a Stanley Cup his first year somewhere else. So boy, am I glad to get a great communicator in here. The other thing we heard about Marco Sturm, the other thing we continue to hear about Marco Sturm as to why he's a great fit for the Boston Bruins is look at the talent he's developed for the LA Kings. The big selling piece for Marco Sturm being a great fit for the Bruins was he developed this young talent that the Kings had. And look at how that Kings team looks now. We're crediting Marco Sturm for the development of Quentin Byfield and Brandt Clark. And we should, to some degree. He did coach them, right, for a little bit, especially Brandt Clark. He played some time in the AHL. But here's the difference. Brandt Clark was the 8th overall pick in the draft. Quentin Byfield was the 2nd overall pick in the draft. If you're looking at the guys the Bruins have, young guys at the NHL level right now, and the guys at the AHL level, their prospects, they don't have anything close to the talent that these guys had coming in. The only one that's close is James Hagens, and he's going to play in the NCAA this year. It's not going to fall under Marco Sturm's purview at all. They don't have anybody in that pipeline who had a top 10 overall pick talent. So we're starting at very different planes for Quentin Byfield and Brandt Clark than we are for Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov and Fraser Minton and Matt Patra. Like, we're not even close to the floor that those guys started on. We're about 3 floors below that, okay? We need to take an elevator ride to get up to those guys' floors. So when you're talking to me about developing young talent, that's true, but we're talking about 2 very different levels of young talent here. To use an old NFL example, I used to get this with Adam Gase. For those of you who follow the NFL, Adam Gase, man, the mind behind Peyton Manning's years with the Broncos. Of course, he can come in and develop our quarterbacks. But he didn't develop Peyton Manning. He developed Trevor Siemian. Now, how does that change your opinion? So, to me, Marco Sturm didn't develop Quentin Byfield and Brant Clark as much as he did someone like Andre Lee when it comes to comparing it to the Bruins. Because he did have a hand in developing Quentin Byfield and Brant Clark. But those guys come in with way more talent than anything the Bruins have. What the Bruins have is probably a little bit closer to Andre Lee, a winger who played a cup of coffee with the LA Kings this year and does seem to be part of their future plans in a bottom 6, bottom 3 role. He's a kid from UMass Lowell, taken 188th overall in the draft a couple years ago, had a nice little college career. But since then, he's played 4 seasons with the Ontario Reign and a handful of games with the LA Kings. In that time with Ontario, playing under Marco Sturm, he had 44 career points in 4 seasons. 4 seasons in the AHL. He's 25. Like there's that kid's nothing. You know what I mean? He's not an NHL player. That's more what we're looking at with Marco Sturm's development history in terms of the planes he has to deal with the Bruins. That makes sense? He's not getting a Quentin Byfield or a Brant Clark with the Bruins right now. He's getting Matthew Patra. He's getting Fraser Minton. He's getting Mason Lowry. Guys with some promise, sure, but top 10 pick, far from it. Far from it. And the other thing I was critical of with Marco Sturm is, what is the play style? Like what is the thing about Marco Sturm? What's the stat that you circle and you say, that's where we need to get better? Here's how he's going to make us better. You know, I think there's a couple different ways the Bruins could go because they're so bad and they're so devoid of any identity right now. You could have gone 4 or 5 different ways and gotten the fan base excited. With Marco Sturm, I don't know if there's any of that. You know, his Ontario Reign team was had the 8th best record in the AHL this year, which is good, fine. Top 10 team in a 32-team league. That's fantastic, right? Except for the fact that he finished the same amount of points as the Providence Bruins, a team with apparently no prospects. No guys that are good enough to come up and play for the 15th worst team in the Eastern Conference at the NHL level. Ontario Reign, same finish. And offensive evolving, yeah, you need a lot of that. His power play last year for Ontario was 17%. That was 9th in their 10-team division. Not 9th in the league, 9th in their division. The Bruins were somehow even worse at the NHL level, 15.2%, 29th. So you bring in a head coach who oversaw a 17% power play last year. In fact, the only good move I think the Bruins have made on this coaching staff was getting Steve Spott in here. I doubt that was Marco Sturm's call because their Bruins are the only team in the league that doesn't allow their coach to pick his assistants. They pretty much fired Chris Kelly and then kept him, brought him back. Bob Asenza, Jay Leach, you all have jobs for life. Supreme Court justices, assistant coach for the Boston Bruins. Only the head coach gets axed all the time. It's only his fault ever. So I doubt it was his call. Maybe, I guess it must have been Don Sweeney's, which I'll give him credit for. I think this is a good move. Steve Spott for the power play, been with the Stars the last couple of years. Dallas made a couple Western Conference finals with him there, and they had the 7th best power play in the whole league this year. So I'm in on that. Sure. I'm there. Steve Spott, great hire. And hopefully Chris Kelly, there's a lockbox that has the clipboards in it, and Chris Kelly does not have the code. I'll get to the point where we need to maybe even cut the fingers off of Chris Kelly so he can not get an expo marker and go on the board again for the power play. That's frightening. And on the flip side, the penalty kill, because that's what I hear about Marco Sturm, defensive-minded coach. Great. I think the Bruins can win some games that way this year. I think they still have a strong D-core, and they should have a bounce-back year from their starting goaltender. I think that's a better way for you to win games than trying to make this an elite offensive team with the talent that you have right now. I'll agree with that. I'm not going to say you don't need more offensive talent, but I'll hear that out. In the short term, you got to win games defensively. Marco, 10th best penalty kill in the AHL last year. Top 10, barely. 83.5%. I'll take that. Of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt. It's AHL numbers versus NHL. And the talent is vastly different. But I'm just looking at play style. I'm looking to see what Marco Sturm actually brings to this and how the Bruins are actually going to play this year. And the only insight we've gotten into that, Marco Sturm and that press conference after free agency already just tickling Don Sweeney's balls, man. What does Marco Sturm say? What kind of play style does he want? We want to be hard to play against. Yes, baby. Yes. Don Sweeney 101. We want to be hard to play against. Something that is completely subjective. Something that is completely unquantifiable. We just want to be hard to play against. That's what they said last year when they brought in Max Jones and Nikita Zadorov. That's what they said. We want to be hard to play against. And again, you can't really quantify it. What does it look like to be hard to play against? In my opinion, and this is subjective, it might not be yours. My opinion, being hard to play against means you win hockey games and teams don't score on you. But we must not have the same definition, myself and the Boston Bruins, because they were anything but hard to play against last year, in my humble opinion. Okay? They couldn't put the puck in the net. They could fight, but they couldn't put the puck in the net. They couldn't stay out of the penalty box. They couldn't stop a puck to save their life. They had one of the worst goaltending tandems in the entire league last year. But damned if Don Sweeney doesn't come up there and say, we need to double down. We need to be tough to play against. We don't need to score goals. We don't need to have an effective power play. We don't need to have NHL above average goaltenders. We need to be tough to play against. That's what we're doubling down on. That's what we're going to again. Like, am I missing something? Is there something that I'm just not getting here? It's almost like fatigue with Bruins fans and Don Sweeney to the point of, like, we criticize them for the trades. We criticize them for the draft picks. We criticize them for the free agent signings. We almost don't even have any capacity anymore to criticize them for this head coaching hire. I think a lot of Bruins fans are sitting there thinking, yeah, what'd you expect? Like, they pretty much waited it out to see if they could get Pete DeBoer. And then a day before Pete DeBoer's on the market, they hired a minor league coach. They went after a guy in Jay Woodcroft, who Anaheim was all too happy to bring in as their assistant coach. And I was critical of Jay Woodcroft as well. But to me, that resume speaks louder than Marco Sturm's. And if you're going to tell me once again that you like the hire because he's a great communicator, I need more than that. I'm sorry. I need more than that. I heard that with the last guy. And it was an ugly, ugly exit as the team got progressively worse each of the years he was here. So I need more than a great communicator. I need more than just, he'll get guys to go to the paint. I need like real commentary here. I need real analytics. I need real stats. I need real strategy to get me on board with Marco Sturm. So what is it that we're missing? I need to know. If you know what it is, tell me in the comment section below. Get involved in the comment section. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. It helps me keep my job, helps me keep us on the air every day. We'll also have the segments going out on YouTube as well, so you can find us there and wherever you find your podcasts.